Philip Tomasino is the name of the winger Kyle Dubas acquired yesterday from the Predators. And this is not an exciting trade, but there likely is more to it. Good morning to you. Good Tuesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. Comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. Not coincidentally, I also happen to offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Tomasino is 23. He's a left winger, doesn't have great size, 6 feet, 179 pounds. He's a former first-round pick. So his thing is supposed to be skill. And in the American League, he had 36 goals, 46 assists in 89 games. That's not bad. That's basically point a game, 82 points in 89 games. In the NHL, he'd been up for 159 games, had 23 goals, 48 assists for 71 points. So that's half a point a game, which obviously projects to him being a 40-point guy, which obviously is a disappointment for anyone's first-round pick. That said, what tends to get you run out of Nashville is if you're not a Barry Trotz type player. And by every accounting, this isn't that. He's been scratched for 12 of the Predators' games this year. Predators, of course, been a disaster. I referred the other day, by the way, on this show to the Penguins as being the biggest disappointment in the NHL. And I was immediately and correctly straightened out in a comment section. This was on YouTube, saying, no, it's the Predators. Actually, it is the Predators. Predators spent a ton of money, brought in Steven Stamkos and all this other stuff, and they're awful. So to have this player, a first-round pick, even though he's been in their organization for 5 years, get sent out for a 2027 fourth-round pick. That's all the Penguins gave up. They really didn't have any use for him. And they didn't really need to clear cap space either, because he comes in at $825,000, which is just barely above minimum. So why would this be a good thing for the Penguins? Well, the obvious would be as if somehow the kid were to find himself, or he felt encumbered by Trotz, or the way the Predators like to play, and then he comes here and, woo, look at me, this is great, I've been set free, I'm out of jail, and he does his thing and scores a bunch of points. Okay, that's your dream scenario. It's probably not likely. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. But the other thing is, it's a reminder, and a tangible one at that, of what it is that Dubas has said he's trying to do. Now, I'm of the opinion that he can be doing more to get his message out. He can be clearer and more succinct and less wordy, and find ways to better communicate, not just with people like me, but with people like you. You're the ones who matter. You're the people who follow the team. You're the people who pay for the tickets. You're the people who are going to these games going, what am I even watching? What is this? Is this a retool, a rebuild? Do they have no idea what it is that they're doing? I don't think Dubas has been distinct enough with what it is that he wants to get across. He's tried, he's had press conferences, he said a bunch of things, but there's a difference between that and having it resonate. And there is no doubt in my mind, based on the feedback that I get from especially season ticket holders, that it has not come close to resonating. People have no idea what's being done. Well, maybe this Tomasino thing helps, because one of the many things that Dubas has said on this subject of the team's direction is that he wants to pile up draft picks, in part because he wants to use those draft picks to acquire other teams' young players. It's kind of a fast forward button. Instead of waiting till 2027 and then building up a big catalog of young guys when Sid is long gone, theoretically. You're trying to bring in younger, fresher, faster players to put around him. Now, the catch, of course, is that they do have to come around. They do have to become a late bloomer like a Drew O'Connor. But in that environment, all they really need to be is better than what you got. So if Tomasino comes into this setting and thinks, boy, I've got to perform at the level of a first-round pick just like Nashville always wanted me to. No, not anymore. All you got to do now, kid, is be better than Anthony Beauvillier. All you got to do now is be better than Matt Nieto. And then from there, you got to have some sort of understanding between the head coach and the general manager that the younger player is going to get favored, which might involve, of course, some intervention from the general manager. But that's it. That's the concept. That's part of the concept. Now, the other thing that you can do with all these draft picks is entice teams to take your bad contracts on. And what or who do I mean by that? Well, there's a handful of candidates here, but the only one that I see as being realistic is Tristan Jarry, two-time All-Star, occasionally looks like he's one of the better goaltenders in the world. And everybody, of course, has a coaching system or an instruction system that'll fix whatever's wrong with him. No one will take him on for $5 million a year over the next 4 years. But again, you throw in some draft picks, you throw in some cash. You go to the Fenway Sports Group people and say, look, I blew it. I shouldn't have signed him to all this. I'll try not to let it happen again. Oops, sorry. And there goes Jarry to his hometown Oilers to lead them to glory. Sorry, too easy. But that's it. You use the draft picks as weaponry. You use them as ammo in trying to bring in more youth, but at the same time, make sure that you're constantly freeing up cap space. Because, as anyone will attest, the ultimate shortcut to being good is to spend in free agency. Well, that's obviously not going to happen now or until next summer. But once next summer comes around, you want there to be as much cap flexibility as possible. Hope that made sense. It did in my head. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Duke McLaughlin, who says, DK, I've been listening to your daily shot of Penguins for the past year or so, and regardless of the doom and gloom for the team over the past year, I've enjoyed the format and your commentary. I appreciate that, Duke. At what point, Duke asks, should we start looking at Sidney Crosby and the debt that the Penguins owe him as being the underlying problem? And of course, I do not mean anything that Sid does on the ice. It just seems to me, as someone looking in, that a lot of things surrounding this team are currently dictated by Sid. For example, Kyle Dubas not letting Mike Sullivan go because of his relationship with Sid. For the record, I'm not for firing Sullivan at all, but if Sid can dictate that, it's not a far cry to believe other items are under a certain amount of the captain's control. Thoughts or feelings on this? First one, Duke, although I'll thank you again for the kind words. I have no idea where you got this idea from, that Sid would keep Sullivan from getting fired. That's actually the first time I've ever even heard anybody posit such a thing. It's not accurate. Sid and Sullivan have a player-to-coach relationship, period. That's not to say that, they've been through a lot together, that there isn't a, mutual respect and, stuff like that. But there's not some sort of outside the arena type bond between them or anything. That's just not at all accurate. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to stamp that one out as emphatically as I possibly can. It's just not true. Sid, in fact, if you want to know the truth, really, really hates getting involved in stuff like that. And I have personal stories I can share with you on that front, and I'm not going to. He does not like to be either the coach killer or the coach supporter or whatever. Now, as for the debt that's owed to Sid, probably the best way that I can describe the the debt owed thing as it relates to this team's immediate future and its longer-term future is this. Kyle Dubas is on record as stating that he doesn't believe in total blow-up rebuilds. And that's actually a good position to take. And I know in Pittsburgh, particularly since we're infected with stuff that the Pirates have done over the last 40 years across the river, we think that every rebuild is a completely gut everything, sell off everybody's limbs if you have to. And part of that, of course, runs back through the Penguins' own history. The Penguins were absolutely horrendous in 1984, and they ended up drafting Mario Lemieux. They were almost as close to rock bottom when they won the Sid lottery. But, history also shows you that those are two extraordinary, beyond extraordinary, twice in a lifetime, if you will, circumstances. And the far more likelier way to build a team up in a salary cap league, which, by the way, the NHL was not in either of those two instances, is to just keep retooling, keep getting younger, piece by piece, pick by pick. Some of those pieces, like maybe an Anthony Beauvillier or a Philip Tomasino or whatever, they're not going to work out. Some of them, like Jesse Puljujarvi appears to be, do work out. Some of them are straight up draft picks, and you need those to work out. One thing that I'm going to guess nobody's talking about anywhere is Sam Poulin being sent down to the AHL yesterday. That's not a good thing, my friends. It's not. That's a top pick going backward. Not once, not twice, several times. That is not good. He has not produced at this top level. He hasn't even established an identity. I say this all the time, but I don't even know what it is that he's supposed to be to feel like I can judge him fairly. But that's what has to go on. It doesn't have to be a get rid of everybody, trade Raquel, trade Rust, trade Gino, trade Letang. And part of the reason for that is that every salary cap comes with a salary floor that's only $20 million apart. So if you wanted to gut it, if you wanted to take it all the way down to parts, you couldn't. You still wouldn't be allowed to do that because you have to be at a certain level. You have to be within a certain range in a salary cap league. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We'll do another one of these tomorrow.